Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a black belt in karate. He has a long history of competition in both grappling and striking arts. He's an undefeated kickboxer with a record of 4-0 and 1 draw. He's also fought in the Golden Gloves as a boxer. He was also an MMA fighter as well. He's the co-founder of the Finishers Only Submission Grappling Tournament, a very popular submission-only tournament that's held all over the country now. He's also a respected instructor at teaching out of his own gym, 10th Planet Bethlehem in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today by Professor Zach Maslany. How are you today, Zach?
What's up, brother? How you doing? Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course.
Really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here, Zach. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, man. I know you've got a very diverse background in martial arts, so I'm really interested in hearing how it all led to jiu-jitsu and what you do today. So if you don't mind me asking, the question I always like to start with? Tell us about where you're from originally and what your life was like before you found jiu-jitsu.
I was born in Northampton, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Pennsylvania over here on the East Coast, and then family moved to my dad's in Bethlehem, so I lived there for a long time. And I just kind of been around the Lehigh Valley, they call it, area here. Pennsylvania is like Easton, Bethlehem, Allentown is another one, and I played all kinds of backyard sports. I never really got into like playing basketball or football or anything like that. Like I tried to a little bit, but then I think by the time I was in like second grade, I already didn't play any sports. But I always played backyard sports, and I felt like I was kind of athletic for a kid. And man, one day I just out of nowhere just saw martial. I don't remember exactly what it was that I saw, but immediately I felt like I wanted to be involved in it. And when I moved over to my dad's, when I was like, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old, he put my brother in karate. And I remember I went up and watched 1 or 2 classes, and the place was called Master Glacier Karate. It was like Taekwondo. And I went up there and watched 1 class, and I was like, I'm in. I need to do this. I need to be in. I think I was 12 or 13. And ever since then, I never looked back. So I started with Taekwondo, karate, and, started going in that. I did that for, pretty much my whole high school career, teenage years. And, we were doing continuous fighting, though. It was Master Glacier, but then it eventually changed over to Tiger Schulman's karate. They ended up buying out a bunch of the different like local martial arts schools that were like already established. Yeah. And they came through and took a whole bunch of them. And, a lot of people quit at the time. It was like a, Karate Kid hostile takeover. Like, it was like it was the same sensei, but it was like a whole new style. Some people lost belts and everything. They went back in belts. So people were pissed at that. And then it went from point sparring to continuous sparring. So now guys didn't like that either, and then we still did like board breaking and forms and all that stuff. But eventually Tiger Schulman's pretty much cut out forms and board breaking and all that. And they just went to, mixed martial arts. Basically, they started doing grappling classes, and then they did kickboxing classes. So that's how I started getting into kickboxing. And I really like stand up. I did the Golden Gloves. And I was still training in grappling, but, they didn't really know too much back then. Like it was still kind of like the only people that I ever heard of was Renzo Gracie School in New York. And there were 2 guys, they were purple belts that moved to an area close to us. And that was like the closest jiu-jitsu you could find. Like if you saw a purple belt, you were like, damn, that was like, seeing a black belt or whatever, for real. Like people never saw you. I'm like, you didn't know what that was. Like I got my black belt in karate when I was 16. And then I think I got like my second degree when I was 18. But, when you like jiu-jitsu, there wasn't any in the Lehigh Valley here at all, really. And then I think the closest place besides Henzo's was it was called Maxercise, but it was Steve Maxwell, the kettlebell guy, and he opened up a place in Philly, but it wasn't like like there wasn't the internet, so you couldn't really you could kind of look it up but not really see it. You didn't really know what it was, and it was kind of like in a weird area in Philly too, so I never went there. But these 2 purple belts, I started eventually going up to train with them because like I started MMA fights, and then I got triangle choked in my second fight. So I beat the first guy, fought a wrestler. I was able to like get him in my guard and everything, but land more strikes and eventually win by TKO. But then in my second, this was after all I did kickboxing. Then my second fight, the guy triangle choked me to sleep. So yeah, I didn't tap. It was a dumb move. And I knew about jiu-jitsu, but I was only learning from, videos and Eddie Bravo always talks about this one Ken Shamrock DVD that they used to sell, like when UFC was getting really not popular, but when UFC was like, people knew about it. People went to the video stores and rented UFC. There was like, tapes you could buy. And I'm pretty sure I had that one. I think I had a Marco Huas, King of the Streets DVD, where it was like stand up, elbows, take them down, and like arm bars and stuff. And I was learning a lot from just watching that. Like me and my couple of my buddies used to do the rolling knee bars, like Oleg Tektarov, and guys were like, "Where is he learning all this stuff?" I'm like, "I'm just watching the videos and just trying to make it up," And then the guy, so years later, I went to a John Danaher seminar in Long Island at Matt Serra School. We drove like 6 hours. I'm from Pennsylvania. I hate going to Long Island. I love it up there, and I love all the Long Island guys. But I always joke with them and tell them that's like going to the moon, because you don't know how long it's going to take. It could be 6 hours, but it could also be like 12 hours if there's some terrible traffic situation. So I went to a John Danaher seminar, and the guy that I fought all these years later was there at the thing. Now, he's a black belt. His name's Joe Ailhard. And I was looking through like the photo collage book at Matt Serra's gym. And in that, because that's where the kid trains, and in that thing was a picture of the night that he beat me. There was no pictures of me, but it was a picture of him and all the guys. And Danaher was in his corner back then. He had hair and stuff. I was like, damn. I was like, that's okay. All right. Now I understand. I wasn't so mad anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely makes you feel better for sure.
Yeah, I was like, I probably didn't really have a chance at that one. But after I lost that fight, and like I still did, I still had some more MMA fights and everything with like mixed results. But I got really into grappling because I thought, for a while I was having a lot of success, just even at Tiger Schulman's, just my own competing against all their guys in their tournaments. Like when I was with Tiger when I was like 16 or whatever, I was doing really good. And then we started doing Nagas. Like they were smart. They were like, hey, we need to take all these young guys. If we want them to do mixed martial arts eventually, we got to start taking them to these grappling tournaments. And, whether they win or lose, who cares? You know what I mean? They would just throw us in there. And I remember I lost like 5 or 6 tourneys in a row. Like we didn't know what the hell. Like we didn't have a game plan or anything. You would just go in and, try moves. And then I remember one time I like ran the table and beat like 4 or 5 guys. And I was like, oh, actually, maybe I can do this. I started getting more confidence, and like a couple of our other guys started winning. And then we used to compete all the time. We flew down to Florida to do competition. We would hit all the New Jersey Grapplers Quest and Nagas that were out here, and we would just go to them as much as possible. And eventually that's kind of where like I really started falling in love with it. Like I got into the, even though people didn't even really know about it back then, like compared to now, I got into like the culture and like, just the grappling, like learning about all the guys. And then I found out about ADCC, and then I was like, oh, this is really cool. And, I knew that it was also too striking is for me, I knew would be like a limited thing. Like you can only take so many headshots, and I loved striking. And like I said, I did the Golden Gloves. I had I loved kickboxing and everything, but that's a young man's game. Like being older and stuff, like, man, I look at some of these guys, I can't believe they're still in there and taking head hits, like getting hit to the head is like that sucks. Like now I did it a bunch of times, but eventually I was like, all right, this is something I could keep going with. And I just kept looking into it and getting deeper and deeper. And then I would find other guys like Eddie Bravo. I found him on the internet, and like I was like, oh man, like this is crazy. And I was always really flexible, and I was like, this is something that I could probably get into. But I used to buy books and everything, and that was like just took off from there. Never stopped training.
That's incredible. I mean, you obviously in the future went on to become a black belt under Eddie. How did that happen? Did you start traveling out to California, or how did that all come together?
Yeah. So like, once I found out that there was 10th Planet, like I didn't even know really what it was. I forget it was probably like 2000, somewhere around there, that I was like graduating high school, and like the internet was just kind of showing up and you could look things up. So I would started looking up, jiu-jitsu and grappling and like all these matches, and then they would have like little, I don't even remember what like website it was. It might have been AOL online or whatever, but I would look up, like I would search things, and they would have like little clip things with like music. Yeah. There was like one for the Lion's Den. There was like one of when Sakuraba was tapping out, all the Gracies and stuff in Pride. And I would just search those, and somehow I came across Eddie Bravo, and it was him in Japan teaching people rubber guard, but in another language. Like I couldn't, I really couldn't understand those words on the screen and stuff, but I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And then I started looking into him from there. And then I bought the book and everything, and I was like following him on his website, 10planetjj.com. And I was like, man, this is something, these are moves that I feel like are good. And I was always looking for moves anyway. So I didn't see it as anything like, besides like, oh, here's another whole set of moves that other guys do not know about, and it, like now it's crazy with Instagram. Everyone knows everything. Like guys know other moves. Like I'll show my guys like at the school, I'll show them a bunch of moves. Like I'll show them like a series, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I already know. You know what I mean? They sometimes act like I'm the old head. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah. So meeting Eddie Bravo was kind of crazy. Like I found him online. I was just looking online, going through, trying to find moves, and somehow I found this video of him on I think it was the old AOL instant, not instant messenger, but whatever it was, AOL online. And found that he had a book, bought that. So I bought his first book. And two of my buddies ended up moving out to California right after we graduated high school. So maybe like 2002, 2003, they moved out there. And I wanted to go out and just stay with them for a week. I was like, all right, I'm going to go out there and hang with these guys. And my buddy Sean moved out to do comedy. And my buddy Bill, he still trains jiu-jitsu. He actually trains at John Jacques Machado's, two of my best friends. And I was like, oh man, they're leaving me. And they're like, well, you can come visit. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I could come visit. So I think I might have stayed out there actually for more than a week first. And couple minutes into the trip, I was like, oh, you know what? I think Eddie Bravo is out here. And I ended up looking it up, and it just so happened that I was like 2.1 miles away from the old Legends gym. I was like, oh man, 2.1 miles. I was like, I can walk that easy. Wow. So I started walking to class, and I remember them asking me, like, they're like, do you have experience? Because like you can't take class with Eddie unless you have experience. I was like, no, I already had fights and everything. I tell them, and they're like, all right. And then the first couple of days, like there was a lot of people in class, and he didn't even he was probably figured I was a new guy. And then once I was rolling, he could see that I had some experience. Like I didn't know any of the moves or anything like that I could pull off on anybody. But I tried to do the lockdown and everything. And I remember taking a picture with him, like he had the longer hair and everything. And I still have the one picture. And he was like, oh, man, where are you from? And I told him, I was like, oh, I'm training out on the East Coast, whatever. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then that was kind of how I met him. And I just kept going back. Like, and that's kind of like the story. Like every time I would be able to go out there and visit these guys at least once a year, I would go back. I'd always be on the forums posting videos of like, here's me doing rubber guard in a competition. Here's me doing an electric chair or whatever. And then he would comment back or like, right, man, you got to try doing this, or you got to, be something like, you got to do the pimp arm in that position or whatever. I'm like, oh, pimp arm? Oh, I didn't know that one. And every time I go out there, they kind of know me a little bit more. And then, turned out I took off some time from like competing, and I was just kind of like thinking I'm not going to make any money doing martial arts, and jiu-jitsu wasn't that huge. And like I said, in my area, it was kind of far away. I trained with those two purple belt guys at Henzo, Hatfield, PA, but I didn't think it was like something that I could really pursue as like a career, because I had a couple fights and you don't really make any money. So I was like, you know what? I don't know what, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So let me just take some time off. I got a real job. I was going to college, eventually graduated college and everything. But I was like, all right, I'm going to roll back and try to do martial arts again. I'm going to, get back into it a little bit. And I did another kickboxing match, won that. I did another grappling tournament. So I was kind of training with some guys in the area. And then so I found out online they were having at the 10th Planet Rochester, which was the only 10th Planet kind of like close to me anywhere on the East Coast. And they were having Eddie Bravo come out. And he had done seminar or two in Allentown, Pennsylvania, for some odd reason. There was a guy out here that liked him that just paid him to come teach like a seminar in like a gymnasium or whatever, and at another MMA gym. And I went to both of those. So he recognized me like, oh, I know you. You've been on the West Coast, whatever. And then I went up to that tournament and he kind of remembered me, but it was a while since I had seen him, so, and like, I was kind of like not posting anything or whatever. And then they had, it was like Eddie Bravo was teaching, then there was going to be a bunch of other 10th Planet instructors teaching as well. And then we're going to have an 8-man sub-only tournament kind of prefacing EBI. Like, this is well before EBI, but Eddie, I think, was getting into, I'm going to start having tournaments. So let's make my own guys fight. And then we'll kind of like go from there, give someone money. And then he's the first ever 10P Rochester, camp tournament champion or whatever. So it was 155 and under. And I was up there and they were like, hey, we need an extra guy if anybody wants to jump in. And I was like, yo, I'll do it. And he was like, who are you? He's like, who are you? And I was like, oh, I've known Eddie before. I trained out in Cali or whatever. He's like, I kind of recognize that guy. He's like, what's your name? I told him. He didn't remember me. He's like, all right, well, he goes, what belt are you? I was like, I'm not any belt, really. And he's like, oh, all right. So they were probably thinking, oh, this guy's going to get smoked. And I just did a camp for kickboxing. So I really didn't have a lot of grappling, in the past couple of weeks. But like, obviously I'd been training for a long time and I'd been practicing 10th Planet moves for the most part for a while. And so I beat the first guy. He had just got his purple belt that day. I got that dude in an arm bar. Another guy got his purple belt that day. I tapped that guy with a toe hold. And they're like big Sambo guys up there. So they were like throwing leg locks at me like crazy, but like not like traditional, like today's style leg locks, like a little bit different, like attacks, like some weird things they call bear traps and all types of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And the third guy was like I think he was already a purple belt at the time. And he was like their best guy. And I was rolling with him. It was like a 12-minute match. And he eventually caught me in a knee bar and everybody went nuts. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. I was like, I thought that was my way into 10th Planet. Like, I just got to win this tournament, But after that, even though I lost, I think they still gave me $100 or something, which was cool. But after that, Eddie was like, damn, dude, like you're not even ranked in jiu-jitsu. He's like, you should try to get into it. He kind of like talked me into it. Like, he's like, you should just, keep going. Well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And I was like, all right, now I got to totally reassess what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do another MMA fight, but I was like, maybe I should just, maybe I'm not ready to do that yet. I was like, maybe I want to really get my jiu-jitsu better. And, see if I could progress with this 10th Planet thing. And then honestly, I had like a bad breakup with like my ex, and, she was crazy, obviously. And, at the time I kind of like lost like everything. Like, I didn't have like I moved outside of the house or whatever. And then I was like kind of living like a vagabond basically, and started doing martial arts with no insurance. And I was like, you know what, man, this is the only time that I kind of don't have many bills. I don't really have a family or anything right now. So this would be the time if I'm going to pursue martial arts again before I get too old, might as well do it. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to fly out to Cali again and compete and all this different stuff. And Eddie, he obviously knew who I was now. So I went out to Gracie Worlds or Gracie Nationals and competed. And then I took like 2 weeks to train with Eddie, and I just trained with him for 2 weeks. And I had sent him an email before, like, hey, listen, like, I'm going to open up my own jiu-jitsu school out on the East Coast. There's no one in the Lehigh Valley right now. There might have been like one gi school or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to open up. There's like the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania has so many good wrestlers. I don't know if you ever heard of this area. There's so many, like Penn State and everything is obviously like 3 hours from us.
Absolutely.
We have a ton of guys out here that just high school, Northampton, Pennsylvania, Easton, all these different ones. And then there's all the Jersey ones, which they got a lot of good wrestlers too, like where Frankie Edgar's from and all those guys. So it's pretty wild. Like the guy, and a lot of those wrestlers, they're not going to do gi, they're just not going to. Like they're going to look at it and be like, why would I do that? They want to do what looks like MMA.
Yes.
They want to do, and that's like, some of the guys I have to tell them too, guys, you can't wear tights like that in no-gi. Yeah. Like, I was like, you got to put some shorts over that, dude, those guys, like they wouldn't do gi. So like, I knew that there was an opportunity for this. And I knew that like a lot of people knew me already, like, out here for training and stuff. I was like, I could get something going. I was like, I know that, if I get the right amount of people, like get a couple guys to help me teach classes and stuff, like we could definitely open something up. And I wanted it to be a 10th planet because at the time, like I wasn't ranked. And there weren't many, every other, traditional gi school that I went into and like tried to like be a part of, like they didn't really want me because I was like a Tiger Schulman guy. So they thought I was like trying to like, I don't even know at the time. They were like cool with me, but they were like, whatever. And I tried to do, some of the classes. And then honestly, some of them were just too far away. Like I couldn't drive over an hour, every day working full time to go to Henzo Gracie's in Hatfield. And the other places, like I said, they didn't really want what I was trying to do. They always wanted me to do gi. I wanted to do MMA. So finally, before I went out to Eddie, I emailed him and I told him, I was like, I want to open up a 10th planet. We'll see. He's like, we'll see. All right, let's see. And I was like, well, I'm going to open up my own school and call it something else. And I'm still going to teach 10th planet moves. So either I can pay you for the affiliation, but I'm still teaching shit. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, sure. All right. And then I went out there and like I said, competed. You watch that. Then I trained with him. I rolled with him a bunch, because I'm basically at the time like right around the same weight. And he would just fillet me with all types of crazy shit. And I couldn't even believe it, honestly. Like some of them, like I couldn't believe how strong he was. And like, it just makes you feel like the first time I ever rolled with someone that was like super high level like that. Just once I got a hold of you, I was like, I get it. There's a whole other division of people out there. Like there's black belt guys and then there's guys that have just been in the game. People forget that about Eddie too. Like if you go back and watch all those old videos, like the 10th planet, mastering the systems and all that stuff, like not only did he have to come up with all these moves or at least put systems together and all this stuff, then he had to try to go hit those moves on everybody who came to his school. So he would be like selling out. I mean, no, that's one of the reasons why he's so banged up now, but he would be like, putting everything he's got to try to make the people believe like, yeah, this shit actually works.
Yeah.
So he definitely put it on the line for sure. But I remember him just kicking the crap out of me. And now I would just watch him like go down the line and just, he never backed down from rolls. Like he'd always be out there throwing down hard. And like I said, he ended up giving me a chance. He was like, all right, well, Zach's going to be, out here running, 10th planet on the East Coast. And I was like, oh shit, does that mean it's a go? And then he was like, yeah, listen, we'll talk about it and everything. So, and then like a couple of months later, I was up and running, started in an MMA school and just took it from there. And, we've had a lot of different changes as things go on, but I've been open almost 10 years now, which has been.
That's incredible. What a cool story, man. What I really appreciate about that is a lot of modern students today might not understand like the effort that had to be put into finding knowledge in jiu-jitsu back in the day. Yeah. Like it wasn't, you mentioned like the Marco Huas tapes. I had a lot of the tapes you mentioned, I still have to this day. Nice. And it was a struggle, man. Like you really had to go find knowledge. And if you lived in, depending how far away from California or New York City you lived, man, if you were kind of in the middle of more towards the middle of the country, it was even harder because there just wasn't a lot of variety. Yeah. And so, that actually kind of brings me to the topic I wanted to discuss with you today. I wanted to pick your brain on this because I know that you're a very dedicated teacher and that you're a passionate teacher. And it's cool that you mentioned how hard you had to work to find this knowledge, because now I know that you're very dedicated to passing that on to people that seek knowledge from you today. So the topic I wanted to focus on you with today is guiding other people through their jiu-jitsu journey. I figured as a school owner and as an accomplished competitor and for all the things that we just mentioned, this is a great topic for you. So I'll start by asking, when did you first realize you wanted to be a teacher? So you decided to open the school. What triggered that? What made you realize that, man, I think I really do want to pass this knowledge on to other people? When did that dawn on you?
Yeah, I think, when I was doing karate back in the day, like after I got my black belt, I was actually my old sensei V, he let me teach karate class when I was 16. And pretty much, I would like give out the commands and everything like that, for the punches and like the combos and all types of stuff. So I would lead the forms, and then eventually once I started working at my own school, even back then, it was like at Tiger Schulman's, I was running like the one in Quakertown with another woman. And I started like a fight class, and this was probably in like 1999, I would say, somewhere around there. Or no, maybe that was like 2002. Yeah, maybe somewhere around there, 2001. And when I was doing that, like we started having like a fight team, and I was teaching a kids class, and then I started seeing kids get really good. And one of the first jobs I had at the karate school was anytime a kid was getting ready for his black belt, my sensei would give them to me and say, "Hey, I'll give you $10, train this kid for an hour, and then get him good at front kicks, get him to kick with the ball of the foot, get him good at chambering the leg on a side kick." And like, then I would work with him on his form. So I was like the technique guy. He would send the kids to me to help them get good at the technique. And I was like, the teenage student who was always chilling at school anyways. And then that's kind of like how I would bring the kids up. I'd help them get them really good because it was like an extra from regular class. Like, it's hard to learn. There's 30 freaking kids in class, let me get a private lesson. So that was like the original, private lesson guy for karate. And then, another reason why is I had two different jobs, but I thought that I could make money doing like having a martial arts school. I'm like, even if I have to work a full-time job and I teach at night, it would still be worth it for me. And I think it would be honestly, just being honest, I felt like it would be a great moneymaker. I felt like there was an opportunity here to have a lot of students because there wasn't many people doing it. So if I could create like a little team and then start working my way out from there. And, so I didn't really know, honestly, when I first started, I didn't really know what I could do with it. And then I just started getting students and people just started showing up at your door. And then you're like, all right, well, how can I get this person good? Like, how can I, help them? And I always tell the kids this too, like because sometimes new kids come in, and they don't know what they're doing. I have really experienced kids and I'm like, look, we got to get them good. It's your job to help get those other kids good. So that way they can get as good as you. So that way you can beat them up. You can't even really beat him up now because he doesn't know anything. But if you get him as good as you, then it's then all of a sudden you can start doing your submissions on him and working the kid a little bit harder. I was like, but in the beginning, you got to treat him like a Fabergé egg, like grandma's little egg, and not hurt him, show him the moves at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I still don't know exactly why. Like I always felt like being a leader, like I always wanted to be like, if we were doing teams or anything when I was a kid, I always wanted to be like one of the guys in charge or anything like that. And I know I'm outspoken. I'll talk. I don't mind talking a lot. So, I felt like that really did good for me too. And just martial arts, being able to stand in front of people and, not get scared, like, because I know a lot of guys like, I don't like talking in front of people. Like, I never had a problem doing that. I'm not that I'm not nervous. Like, I do get nervous doing, even podcasts and stuff. I'll get nervous, but once I get going, I'm all right. But I just feel like, all right, I got to do this. Like if you got to go up there and talk in front of everybody and like keep it together or whatever. But I don't know what it is that exactly pushed me towards it. I think I just kind of got into it by default. And, like I said, I helped with the kids. And then I was like, all right, then I just started taking it as like a challenge. Like, how can I get these people good? Or like, what would be the best way to, if I have like, a team and anything and I have attributes and this guy has this, like, what can I add to him? Like the matrix, this guy, I walk around like this guy would be good at a triangle. Like you do triangles, you know what I mean? And tell him something like that. Or, I would see, like, especially working with some of our kids, that got really good over the years, I would just have to add like one or two things to them. Like they already figure out a lot of stuff on their own, but I'm just like, oh, now I'm just like, boom, what about this? Hey, what about that? Like you could add, these different techniques to your game, and it's stuff like that. I feel like has really helped me get people good, like just kind of overseeing everybody now. It's crazy really what it's become. Like I have a hand in a lot of, people coming through the school, but a lot of people are working with my other guys, so now I'm kind of like overseeing, like not the main teacher, like I still teach the main advanced classes, but I'm kind of like now overseeing a group of instructors, which is even crazier. You know what I mean? So it's like I went from like, just teaching kids and just teaching a few adults to like now having, a group of guys that teach. So it's a challenge. It for sure is. And I'm like just trying to work as hard as I can to stay on top of everything,
That's awesome, man. Well, that's really cool. Well, I imagine that being a black belt under Eddie Bravo provides you with a tremendous amount of support. I know that Eddie obviously takes his affiliation very seriously, and I know it's a really highly organized operation. Does he have some sort of like global curriculum that all affiliates can follow, or is it typically up to each instructor to create their own classes?
Yeah. Well, Eddie's the man, like so much that he wants you to do whatever you feel is right, because he wants people to be very individualized. Like if you see a lot of the 10th Planet guys, I mean, look at Gio and Boogie, and they have their own style. And then there's Nate Orchard, and then there's all these different guys that have their own kind of style. So they're going to teach the way that they teach. But we do have, the 10th Planet warm-ups. That's one of the instructionals that me and John Blank have with BJJ Fanatics is the 10th Planet warm-ups. And, there's A through H, and there's like kind of each one focuses. One's pressure passes, one's butterfly guard, one's open guard, one is Granby rolls. There's a whole bunch of stuff. They all got like back escapes, rubber guard, leg locks, passing. Like it's got everything in it. So if you know all those moves, and some people don't like the warm-ups. Like we teach like, a definitely version. Like I might not do every warm-ups. Like if you go to Eddie's, you better have your warm-ups on point, or he's going to be like, yo, you don't know this? Like you should know that. You should know this. So it'll definitely give you a hard time. But, for us, like we've been doing a lot of live drilling lately, but we've always done that too. And you do that in the warm-ups as well. So there's big portions of it where you start spiral clinch, you start in X guard, and then it's just a live go from there. So you're getting that live drilling, but we've cut it down. Like I don't teach very much as like before. I felt like back in the day I would teach like, I'd be in there just for like 15, 20 minutes, just firing moves, or even longer than that, 45 minutes. And that's cool for like a seminar, but for like class during the week with so many people coming and going and trying to get their training in and being busy, like if there's something like, a new, like certain, whole situation that we have to go over, like a Choi bar, for instance, like a different kind of arm bar, that might take a little bit longer to explain that to everybody, but some things like, hey, we're just repping out, rubber guard, or like some pass we're working on, some new pass. Like we might do that one or two different things. Maybe we bring it in once or twice. And after that, it's a lot of live drilling. And I feel like that's, a mixture of those is really important, but it's up to the person a lot to know all those techniques that are on that board. Like if there's something up there that you're not seeing and you're getting close to your purple belt, you should be looking into all of those, that'll help. But if you just come to class by default, eventually you're gonna figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, that's really cool. I really like that approach to it for sure. And I also like the fact that you mentioned that if there's specific techniques that are becoming important to focus on, that you be sure to include them. And that kind of brings me to something I'd like to pick your brain on, actually. So jiu-jitsu is obviously a constantly evolving art, and there's something interesting that happens is that as certain techniques and positions become more and more at the forefront in competition, it can over time change the hierarchy of techniques that students need to know. Like a good example, when I was training back in the day, I used to visit academies that would never let any white belts do any sort of leg lock at all. Like you had to be blue belt or above to even do like a straight ankle lock. And unfortunately, when guys, as the leg locks became more and more popular over the years, those guys would become blue belts and then go to tournaments and then often quickly get flushed out of their division because they'd get tapped with leg locks, right? So my question for you is, if you had to create your very own curriculum from scratch based on the current state of jiu-jitsu for people that want to go compete, what are you teaching them within their very first year?
Man, that's so much stuff, but to condense it down though, like I feel like because I've been thinking about this a lot actually lately. Like what if I had to choose certain things like A or B, what would I rather have them have? But I would be teaching a very so I think the main aspects would be like I would show them. And it's kind of like what I already do with the kids, which is interesting because kids are interesting because you can't really teach them leg locks. But although we do get some of our older kids, they start understanding, when to do leg locks, when you're not allowed to do leg locks. But we start them off with like, because it's easiest to teach the kids, I feel like, to teach them like standing passing, right? Because one standing, one kid's on the ground. They're learning how to put their butterfly hooks in, sweep the person, and you're looking how to try to pass. So I would be working on a lot of standing passing, staying on top. obviously back control. And then, those type of things, being able to stand up from the bottom. That's another good one, right? Being able to be on the bottom and get up. Like I said, back control. And then one bit like a pinning, like holding someone down would be good. And then on the guard play, I mean, there's tons of moves like, there's obviously rubber guard, there's obviously different arm bars and, like I mentioned, the Choi bar and all that stuff. But I would show people like the main basics, just a regular arm bar and the triangle. I wouldn't, especially in the first year, spend too much time all these wild techniques. I would keep them set with that, because as they're rolling, they'll start figuring out where to put. And as they're doing live drills, they'll start figuring out, like if you know that one arm bar, you'll figure out where to catch other arm bars. Like once you keep getting more experience, because you'll get arm bars in situations where I might not have taught it to you, or it's not like how it's drawn up in the book, but you kind of got to it. You still got arm bar. Same with the triangle. Once I show the kids, like, the triangle from the back, that's pretty solid. They get that. And then, hey, here it is from mount. They understand how to get it. We'll work on fixing it and all that different stuff. But I think those couple ones, like I said, standing, passing, sweeping from open guard, like big time open guard, because that's how every match starts. Someone's sitting on their butt, someone's standing. You're passing, like I said, the back, and then opposite of the back is the mount. Right. So any of those top pinning positions, side control, just being able to go back and forth from those submissions, we can work those in later. The back control, escapes. And then once we got to the leg lock portion of it, what I would teach people first is defense, I feel, because and I was just having a conversation with a couple of my guys about this too, because the offense is good, but if you spend too much time on the offense, you could get set into a situation where you're only going for leg locks offensively, and your defense is kind of not there. And I'm feeling now at the highest level, anyways, just by watching it, the defense is really what wins. Like most of the time, the guys that have the better defense will get out of it. Perfect example was over this weekend at the Who's Number One, Janata Gracie versus Oliver Taza, and that was a great match. But man, that he just knew where not to be. A couple different back takes, and when you're just solely looking for leg locks, it gets very difficult, for the guy on his back to just constantly entering in. Now that being said, sometimes those leg lockers, they only need one attempt. They only need sometimes one good attack, and that's how they get you. But man, the defensive, and then some guys just won't tap. I mean, look, I thought Nicky Rod had that leg lock, and Peng is willing to tap to it. So I would concentrate heavy on the defense first, especially in that first year. Just like simple ones, how to single leg X, someone put you in, Ashi, how to just get out of regular Ashi, how to separate the legs and outside Ashi, how to stand, take the back. Once you have those couple ones, like the initial attacks are going to be, very hard to catch you in. We have some guys now that like they're purple belts and they've been training with me for a while. And I didn't, I showed them finishes and stuff. They have the ones that they like, but man, their defense is tough. I can barely leg lock some of the guys in class, and I just think it's from rolling, a lot, allowing leg locks in a safe way, but we've worked on a ton of different, just basic defensive concepts. And now they're just, they're very difficult. They're very difficult to get. I have a hell of a time getting guys, at the dojo now. It's tough.
That's awesome. That's incredible, man. I think that was a great breakdown, man. I that's something I always wondered about myself too. Like, okay, if you have a school then you're limiting teaching leg locks for beginners, why not at least teach the defenses? Maybe let more advanced people apply the technique to them slowly and not in a live roll. Maybe if you're concerned about people not understanding when to tap or whatever, but at the very least, let them work the technique and work the understanding of how to escape properly, how to turn their knee properly without blowing their MCL or LCL out. And I feel like then when they get to the point where they can start learning the offense based on whatever the rules of your school are, man, now they're on a really fast track to doing better in competitions when they first get out there. So I think that's a very good suggestion that you just made is, teaching at the very least the defense up front. Yeah.
Yeah, I want people to know if I'm standing over someone, I want everyone at our school immediately to know when someone goes into, Ashi or a single leg X on you, how to take that foot, push it down, escape your knee and spin out. I want people to know that, because if someone reaped your knee, I don't want them to just fall and, and then your knee got hurt. They didn't even do anything. I want them to be able to know that. It's the same with any submission. Like when we're teaching submissions, they have to understand, like, look, you can't yoke a Kimura on a guy. You're going to hurt him. You can't rip an arm bar. Like, you have to have experience before you're able to really roll. And we're pretty tough on people at the school. Like, we don't let just anybody roll. Like, some schools I know, they'll just let guys, like, we will jump them in, like, and the way we do it is with the live drilling. Like, we put the guys in live situations, let them go there, and then, hey, you're done. I do that with the new kids too. I don't necessarily let them roll a full round against one of our kids, because sometimes the kids don't know how to take it easy on a new kid, although I'm constantly drilling that into their head. I let them do the live drills and say, okay, you're done. You can just chill out and watch these guys. And then it's something they can work their way up to. So many times I see people going, like, beginners just throwing each other around, crushing each other. Like, guys are going way too hard. I'm going to tell them, like, hey, man, you need to relax. You need to learn how to flow roll first. It's going to help you. You're going to learn all the positions. You're going to learn all this stuff a lot quicker than you are just trying to beast everybody, But that's difficult. A lot of guys, they have a difficult time with not understanding how not to just, go ham, So I feel it's a constant battle of just being like, guys, easy, we'll throw it 100%. Go in the competition when you're ready, and then throw it 100%. But,
that's
yeah, I think it's taking guys back a lot. That's like I tell people too, that's a big part of my job, is talking people out of things. When they're like, coach, I think I'm going to fight or whatever. I'm like, I don't know, man. You should just take your time. I want to have guys that are just, ready to go, as opposed to jumping in, ahead of time and then having a bad experience and then maybe don't do it anymore. And that would be upsetting,
So, well, dude, that speaks very, very heavily to your qualities as a leader, man. I think that's really outstanding that you're that mindful with your students. Speaking of your student base, there's something interesting you talked about earlier that I wanted to pick your brain on a little. You mentioned that geographically where you are, it's a hotbed for wrestling. Obviously, Pennsylvania State, next to New Jersey. There's a lot of really tremendous wrestling comes out of that region, and I imagine that there's a lot of students that you have that walk into the door for the first time. It may be their first time in jiu-jitsu, but it's certainly not their first time grappling. Do you feel that a lot of the people that start with you at your school are, because of their wrestling background, are more, I guess, on like an accelerated trajectory when they start training jiu-jitsu?
Some of the guys, 100%, 100%. There's a couple of guys, Jordan, and then just guys I know from other schools that, like, they got really good really fast. And, I noticed some of the guys, their submission game might not be there yet. Like, they're not ready to, like, really open up into, like, really throwing submissions. But as for, like, getting good quick and being impossible to tap, they learn the defense. And that's one thing I noticed. These guys that have wrestled before, they learn the defenses quick. They go, okay, that's a triangle. That's not going to happen very often. They'll figure out the leg locks too. Like, if their ego allows them to stay in there, because we've had guys start and I'll never understand this, and then they quit, and they were good wrestlers in high school or whatever. But some guys stick with it and they just figure out, like, oh, okay, don't get put in this position. Don't let them put me in that position. And they figure out the defenses, and, you don't even, man, some of the guys, like, they're hard to get in on. Like, I'd have to throw everything, be full power bar to just be able to put them in some bad positions. They understand real quick what not to do. And then it makes them very difficult to roll against or train against. And then they start seeing, results in competition where, like, if someone hasn't grappled before, this guy might have, how guys will get hyped up for, like, a jiu-jitsu tournament. Like, I'm doing my one tournament once every 3 months. Wrestlers used to compete every weekend. So, like, to them, doing a comp is, like, no big deal. They're just going to start getting that experience. And all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, this guy, he's only been training 2 or 3 years and he's already ready to battle, guys that are brown belts, and do pretty good. And some of our guys are doing that right now. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it. And even the guys that I don't look at as because there are wrestlers, and then there are other guys that I look at that I'm like, oh, is that guy? And then they're like, dude, he wrestled for 4 years and this, and then he went to Kutztown for 3. I'm like, damn, that guy's a wrestler too. Holy cow. I'm like, that's crazy, And a lot of the guys you don't even think have wrestling experience. I'm one of the only guys that didn't wrestle, honestly. I didn't wrestle in high school or college or anything. And we have our head MMA coach, his name's Zach Makovsky, and he fought in UFC and he wrestled for a local high school out here. And then he went to, he walked on to Drexel, became the team captain. That's a great wrestling school.
Wow.
And then he was training under Faraz Sahabi and, training with GSP and stuff for many years. And while he was fighting in UFC, and he's still competing, but now he's coaching at my school, which is a blessing to have him. And it's like, for me, I'm like, dude, I'm not, he taught me an ankle pick. Like, that's probably my best takedown, but the rest of it, I just leave it up to him. And, he's also a black belt under Marcelo. So it's pretty cool having him at the school. It's like a whole nother style. And I'm always bouncing stuff off of him. And I feel like, a lot of guys gravitate towards him because they see he's got that wrestling-based style. It's great for MMA, and like he's got a great guillotine, and he's got really good escapes, and he's got a great butterfly guard too. So it's like, those guys, they pick it up fast. They understand. Like, he'll go for leg locks and stuff too, but they start figuring out like, oh, I can beat these jiu-jitsu guys in this way. Like me, when I roll with him, it's his top half smashing me trying to pass versus my butterfly guard every single time. And guys figure, dude, I mean, that's what I mean. Guys figure out they keep their hips down low. And like, we got this one guy, Jordan Giuliano, he was a good wrestler. And man, I can't do anything to him. I haven't rolled with him in a while, but I see him rolling with these animal guys. Like, they're doing EBI rounds or standing up and ripping each other off. And, I'm like, damn, that's a different mentality. Like, anytime our kids, some of my little kids, my young kids that are getting really into jiu-jitsu, they're starting to go, because I do teach them wrestling a little bit every class. Like, we'll work on a Russian 2-on-1 or like an arm drag. We work on a couple of takedowns just so they're not ignorant to it. We do pull guard too. But there's only so much time in the week. You only have 3-hour classes to work with these kids. It's hard. So they're going on other days, they're going to wrestling camps. And they're starting to wrestle now. And I see some of our girls and our boys too that have wrestled during the year or go to the wrestling camps. They come back to jiu-jitsu and they're just like another level. They just have a different intensity, that a person just doing jiu-jitsu might not have. So it definitely helps, I mean, still, they don't know anything. Like, the other kids are going to put them in triangles and arm bars. But hey, even that one day a week where they're getting like a whole hour of stance and how to keep your legs straight and everything. And it just helps out it's a big change. And then some of the kids already come to me, they already have wrestling experience. And then it's like I said, it's just like adding moves like the Matrix. I'm like, you should try this. You should try this. You should try this. It makes my job really easy.
That's incredible. Yeah, the work ethic that people learn in a wrestling room is really hard to replicate anywhere else. It's a very special kind of thing, and I know what you mean. Like, you meet people that started wrestling, and if you knew them before and afterwards, the work ethic is different. Their grit is just different. It really is like so great for jiu-jitsu. It transfers over so well. So that's really cool that you're not only located in a place where you're very exposed to that and your students as well, but also that you got a great coach in house as well, who's helping teach it in-house. So that's really cool, man. Zach, I'll tell you what, man, we've reached about the halfway point of the show. I want to switch gears with you here really fast. This is where I always play a game with my guest. This is a game called The Pummel. The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of these are related to jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play The Pummel, I'd love to play this game with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Question 1, what's the worst job you ever had?
I would say I worked for a construction company where I was doing concrete cutting. And man, it was tough, hard on the body, and the guys that I worked with were not nice.
Yeah.
So
just a
that was
miserable.
probably the worst one. Yeah. But I've known guys who have had worse jobs than that. So it was bad, but it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, definitely. What's something you wish you were better at outside of martial arts?
That's a tough one. I wish I was better at math.
Good answer.
I mean, I can count money, but that's about it.
Yeah, dude, I'm right there in the same. We'd be in the same tutoring class for sure, man. I totally get it. What do you think is a secret talent that you have that people might not know about?
Know a lot of pro wrestling statistics.
Nice, dude.
A lot of unuseful right now in making money wise. Information, but I still know a lot of stuff. I'll be like, oh yeah, that was a Macho Man Randy Savage 1980 or whatever. And my wife's, why do you know that?
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I grew up a huge pro wrestling. I think any kid that grew up in the 90s or 80s, man, if you're not a pro wrestling fan, something went wrong.
Yeah. If you weren't allowed to watch it, I question your parents.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, here's a special one for you then. Top 3 professional wrestlers of all time.
I got to go Ric Flair. Just because, like, not only was he a crazy person, animal, but he put his money where his mouth is. He would do, a lot of guys don't know, but he would do like hour-long wrestling matches and stuff. And back in the day, he'd come out there. He'd do that every night while drinking, while partying, while womanizing, and doing all the shit that he really talked about. Yeah. He would actually still go to the gym somehow. I have no idea, because if I have a few drinks, the last thing I want to do is work out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I feel horrible. That's why I don't even really drink anymore. Like, I'll have some wine every now and then, but because I got stuff to do the next day. So Ric Flair was that man. Like, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and he was the man. He was crazy. Yeah. And he would go out there and do hour-long matches. So I got to say Ric Flair, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yes.
I always loved the Hitman because I loved the story, and he was such an awesome guy. It was like a change up from all the weird characters that they have, because it was like his real name.
Yeah.
I always thought that was cool, because it was like, the Hitman, it's Bret Hart, and then there's the whole family, and, they were into catch wrestling, which I didn't even realize back in the day. Like, his old man was like, they were doing real holds, and
Stu Hart.
That's one of the reasons I liked him too. Yeah, because he was, they would, like, if you watch Bret Hart wrestle compared to a lot of the wrestlers, like, and not to make fun of my next pick, which I'm going to throw Hulk Hogan in, because, and I could name so many guys, but Hulk Hogan had like 3 moves. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't really do anything. Like, he barely had, but he knew how to, work the crowd, and that's a whole nother thing. But, guys like Bret Hart didn't like Hulk Hogan because, same thing. He could do like a big boot and then throw the leg drop, and like he didn't do anything. And Bret Hart would be doing a million different moves and having these technical wrestling matches, and he would get really upset at him. I remember there's some good interview. If you're ever bored, there's some good interviews online of Bret Hart, talking trash on Hulk Hogan and stuff. But, I got to love Hulk Hogan because, like, when I was a kid, like, everyone loved Hulk Hogan, and I hated seeing him lose against the Ultimate Warrior. That made me mad, but I like the Ultimate Warrior too, so it didn't matter. But there is another one too. Last thing on that one is there's another Hulk Hogan. If you actually want to see Hulk Hogan wrestle, there's him in Japan. And there is a video on YouTube where he has to do, like, because the Japanese pro wrestling culture, like, they don't want to see that style. They want to see moves. They want to see you, doing, like, he even went for a leg lock in the match. Like, it was crazy because a lot of those guys mix moves in. It looked like he was going for a leg lock, and he was going. It was crazy. So look that one up. Hulk Hogan wrestling in Japan. I forget who he was going against, but that's what they would do. They would every now and then they would take the top wrestlers over there. But you knew if you were going to Japan, All Japan Pro Wrestling or New Japan or whatever it was back then, you used to have to wrestle. So
yeah, they were like super into the technical. They weren't so much into like the storytelling in the Hollywood side. They were more into like the technical, like the grappling side.
Yeah, they knew the guys outside of it, but it was never like they weren't doing promos and all that stuff like that. They weren't like learning about, like, this guy was cheating on this guy's wife and all these crazy shit that they came up with. Yeah. They were just like, we just want to see the matches. It was like that. I went to I coached Grace Gundrum at Quintet, and when she went to Japan for the 10 Planet team, and I was like, there's no way I'm missing this, and that's one thing that was crazy about the fans there. Like, I had like I had a beer in the stands, and like, cause they only let Eddie Bravo and I forget who else in the back. They were being real stingy on that. So I was like in the corner with all like the family members, and I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, let's go. And everyone in the crowd was just silent.
Yeah.
But what was really cool is like someone would hit like a guard recovery and everybody would clap.
Wow.
They would know exactly what's going on. And I would like, do all these people train? And they're like, no, they don't. I'm like, wow, that's wild. I'm like, they just know what's up. And then when Grace started going upside down and doing all this crazy stuff, like, they were like, the fans were going insane. Like the people are going nuts.
Dude, the Japanese fans, that's the reason I always loved Pride so much. Like whenever you're watching Pride, it's like, man, they like you said, they would react to really technical little things. And it's like, man, they're just such an educated crowd, you know? So it's really cool. It's really cool. It was the same way for the pro wrestling shows as well.
You can see it.
Yeah, dude, solid choices too, by the way, for your picks. But I got to send you a video clip. I don't know, you may have seen it before though, if you're super into watching all the videos. I was watching a match with Bret Hart, just randomly. I go into these things like over the weekend where I'll spend like 30 minutes just flipping back to some old nostalgic, like 1993 Royal Rumble matches and stuff like that. And I was watching a match and Bret Hart hit a Berimbolo. And I was like, it was like that meme with DiCaprio where he's pointing at the TV. I was like, dude, whoa. I said I had to rewind it. And then I actually sent it to Jeff Glover right away. I'm like, dude, Bret Hart just hit a fucking Berimbolo. Check this out.
Yeah, send me that.
I'm going to send it to you. Oh, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I'm going to post that 1,000% because I bought the Bret Hart glasses.
Nice.
And every now and then I just wear them at the school, and people are like, "What are you doing?"
That's awesome. It's kids.
I know it's like that. Like it is that meme too, when like girls are like, "I bet he's thinking of other girls." It's like me watching it. She's like, "I wonder what are you watching over there?" I'm like watching Razor Ramon do like a match or whatever, and she's like, okay.
It's just Zach sitting on the couch with his glasses on, just like observing, watching some nostalgic wrestling, man. That was the best era of wrestling for sure, was the 80s and 90s.
It really was. Yeah. Nowadays, I don't watch it, but I did get invited. I was talking to Gio and Boogie, and they invited me to go to the Royal Rumble, and it was like pretty expensive to go. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going. I was like, I would love it because maybe then you would see some guys. I just watch it at home. But WrestleMania is coming to Philadelphia.
Oh,
I heard. So
oh, wow. That's gonna be expensive though, huh?
It's gonna be expensive, but I thought about just getting a place down there and just kind of driving down to the parking lot and just seeing what kind of people were out there acting crazy, and then just going to watch it from like an Airbnb or something.
That's awesome.
Because I know I've been down to Philadelphia, like in the parking lot down there is insane. Like you don't know what to expect. Like I just, my buddy used to live there, and one time I walked through a like there's when the fights are going on, like when Conor McGregor was fighting, it was crazy down there. Like there were so many people. But one time I went to a country concert, and I don't like country, but I didn't go to the concert. I just went to the parking lot to see what was going on. And there were people partying all over the place. It was pretty cool. I was like, all right, if WrestleMania is down there, I bet there's going to be people dressed up. There's going to be, that's why I figured I might have to go check it out.
That's awesome. Well, dude, you grew up not far from ECW country, man. Did you watch a lot of ECW growing up?
Oh yeah, I went to that too as well. We went to one in Ag Hall. I got a couple good stories from. I think I went to 2 or 3 of them, and then I did go down to the 2300 arena once. Dude, the one a guy was there to start a fight with New Jack, because last time he was there, he hit it, something broke off and hit the guy in the crowd. Wow. So that was the first thing, like, because New Jack was the guy he'd bring in the trash can full of weapons and everything.
Yeah, for the listeners not familiar, New Jack was arrested for stabbing another wrestler almost to death, and he also he's like a real life like hardcore dude. So this guy shows up wanting to fight New Jack. Okay.
Yeah, and then the time before that, people, they would actually, and now this is, imagine nowadays how this would be, but they would allow you to bring weapons to the thing,
like,
and you would hold them in the line. So people brought, like, I remember they brought an old Nintendo, someone brought like a guitar, someone had
signs.
some puppets, and they just had, people were standing with us in line to get into the place. And then when you would go through, you put it on the side, like maybe he'll bring it out and beat the other guy with it.
That's
and I was like, man, they would never let that happen today.
No.
And then in the match, like I was on the bleachers or whatever, and this was at Ag Hall, Agricultural Hall in Allentown. They had wrestling there all the time. I also saw my grandfather, and a couple people actually took me to see the main event was the Macho Man versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, nice.
And I was pissed because Hulk Hogan wasn't there, but there were so many other guys. I remember felt like it was so far away when I was a little kid, but like Ag Hall's not that big. Like when you're a kid, you think it's so huge.
Of course, yeah.
But it is pretty big. But it's like I thought it was so far away, but it was crazy. Like we saw the guy, like Superfly Jimmy Snuka was there and everything. Wow. It was pretty wild. And then, but at the ECW, the guy, it was Taz versus someone else. And I bet maybe like a guy, I can't remember which guy it was, but they were in the crowd and someone spit on Taz and he turned around and punched the guy for real right in the face and knocked him out. Like he was down, like I was standing above it. I was like, did that just happen? And then they just went along the wrestling match and they took the guy out. And there were like things like that would happen all the time. But since it wasn't filmed and no one, like there weren't a million phones, like that's for the wrestler, they might just punch you in the face. And if it wasn't like, like I said, if it wasn't filmed, it'd be like, good luck proving it. Like, you'd be like, yeah, he hit me. You'd be like, no, I didn't. It's like,
that says who? Yeah, and then you got like nothing but fans of the guy there. Like, no, you didn't. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy though. Pennsylvania here, like I don't know, like wrestling. I'm sure it was big in other places, but we had like even our area here, there was a lot of pro wrestling stuff going on. Like Philadelphia has a 2300, and then Fight to Win used to be there, and now they have a CFFC and Cage Fury, and the Fury grappling. They have that all at the 2300. They have a big ECW thing on the wall. So I got to do a couple competitions there, which is cool, like jiu-jitsu comps, which is dope because you're competing at the ECW arena. So the first time I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like guys fighting there, they really like that. But I got one more good wrestling story.
Yeah, please. Please.
The Ultimate Warrior and this makes no sense why this would happen, but there's a place called Unclaimed Freight out here where they sell like old like beds and stuff. Like everything was like, this used to be at this place. Now it's over here and we have like 10 of them and we're selling them. So it's like an old warehouse for like old furniture. And my uncle, this is when I was really young at the time. My uncle tells me, he goes, I'm taking your cousin, his son, over to Unclaimed Freight. The Ultimate Warrior is going to be there. And I'm like, what? Why would the Ultimate Warrior be at Unclaimed Freight? And they're like, all right. So we went to it and we got there and it was at night and the line was wrapped around the bit. Like I felt like, and like I said, I was a kid, but I felt like there were hundreds of people there. Right. So my uncle goes, we're never going to wait in this line. Screw this. He goes, we're going in the store. So I'm like, what do they think? Why wouldn't everyone just go in the store? You want to wait in line to see him. So we go into the store and we walk like all the way around to like kind of where he is, but like they have stuff kind of blocking it. So we jumped up on a bed and we're looking to see, and we had like a great view. We were just watching him for like, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 minutes. And then I remember the guy saying to my uncle, like, hey, you can't stand on the bed. You got to buy it. And my uncle's like, we're just testing it. Like, we were clearly there to see the Ultimate Warrior, but we just didn't want to stand in line. But then what happened was when we jumped on, more people started doing it. And then it started to be like a whole, like as we were leaving, it started to be like a sea of people coming in and people were standing on beds and they were breaking and then people were moving the furniture and it just got wild. But I had no idea why he just was randomly, I don't know if the place decided to like, let's set up the Ultimate Warrior and see if we can pay him to get here for some reason. It made no sense.
Maybe he had like a layover and they found out and they just offered him some cash, gave him a room,
It made no sense. Oh, also too, another good one is The Rock. He went to my high school.
No way.
The Rock actually went to Freedom High School. Yeah.
No way.
He went to Freedom. He lived in Bethlehem and he played football here until eventually I think he moved to Miami because his uncles, the Samoans, the Wild Samoans, they're from Allentown and they used to have a wrestling school out here. And I knew a lot of guys who like went there, like tried to go to pro wrestling school and they just didn't hack it. They said the guys just beat the shit out of everybody there. Like for real. They like punch you and like slap you and like all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and that same thing from Catasauqua, PA, like at that school was the Nasty Boys. Like they lived out here too. Yeah, I got all these old wrestling stories. It's funny.
That's incredible, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, we used to always say about The Rock too. Would be like we would make up a rumor that The Rock was coming back next year to our high school. He never was. He was already too big of it. And they'd be like, "Oh man, he's coming in!" And everybody would get hype, and then he just wouldn't show up. I don't know why we did that though. So,
you guys should have like played his entrance music on a boom box and be like, "Oh, here he is!" And
guys dressed up and everything, nothing. And then they would. I remember they announced it once on the thing. They were like, the man that calls himself The Rock is not going to be coming back here or whatever, Rocky or whatever they call him. Like, they fell for it.
Oh, it's hilarious, dude. It's fun. I grew up in Atlanta where WCW was based out of.
Oh, okay.
And so every now and then we would see people here and there. Like I remember one time we saw Hulk Hogan at the airport, but he was like, the second he came in, he was just swarmed. So there was like no way you're not going to get anywhere near him. And then, yeah, we saw a few other people like at restaurants and places like the mall. One time we swore we saw Shawn Michaels, who obviously wasn't a WCW guy, but we swear, my brother and I, and we were real young at this point, so you can forgive us, but we swore that we saw Shawn Michaels sitting in a Taco Bell. And we sat there like, dude, that's Shawn. Oh my God, it's really Shawn Michaels. You know, he just had the hair and kind of. It's just probably some dude that works out. He probably runs like the fitness class.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. You know, and we didn't get the balls to go over and say anything, I don't think, but we were convinced we saw him. As we've gotten older, we're like, dude, there's no way Shawn Michaels was sitting in the Taco Bell off of Highway 2 over there. There's no way.
You never know. I'll keep the story going.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. Speaking of bad food, man, what's your favorite bad food to eat?
Probably just pizza, honestly. Like I'll just crush pizza. Like I could just eat a whole pizza, which isn't that bad, but still. Good choice.
What's something that you cannot eat no matter what?
I don't really think there's anything. I mean, I'll pretty much eat anything. I've had some crazy bad experiences with some food though. Like I got food poisoning real bad. I remember one time when I was sick, I ate a lot of caramel apples and then I threw it up all over. So like everyone, like if I see a caramel apple, I'm like, man.
Yeah, you get like nauseous.
Yeah.
Nice. What do you think was the scariest moment of your life?
Scariest moment of my life. I was in a car accident once when I was a kid, and it was a girlfriend of mine that was driving. I think we were 16, and it wasn't her fault. But what happened was someone in the lane next to us fell asleep and started swerving over, and we had to try to get out of the way of them. And then their car hit ours, and we spun out, and then there was a bunch of cars got into an accident behind us, and yeah, that was pretty crazy. Like some people definitely got jacked up in that. But I just remember like as we were spinning, like I just remember like my heart like fell out. Like I couldn't even believe it. It was like the scariest thing. And she was pretty much traumatized for a while and wouldn't drive in a car. I had to, because I had to go to work and stuff. But I mean that like being in a really bad car accident, I got to feel like is probably one of the worst. That's why like if I ever see like someone shares a video where there's on the ice or like cars are slipping, I'm like, I can't even watch that. I'm like, just turn it off. Yeah. Just turn it off. Same thing. Another time a dump truck hit us too. And we didn't get hurt or anything, but the airbags popped and just that smell, like that just, that still just brings back terrible memories.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly the smell you're talking about. It's like hot plastic metal. It's like, it smells like a factory line almost.
Not good.
Not cool. Well, man, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad nothing serious happened as a result of those car crashes. Who do you think's your favorite grappler of all time?
Man, there's so many good guys. Watching guys, I feel like I got to go with Marcelo. He might be my favorite to watch, just because he was always looking for the submission. He was always throwing down, like just going after big guys, taking guys' backs, choking their necks. Always love watching him. And I like watching some of the old matches too. Like I like watching John Jock because like I feel like I play a heavy John Jock Machado style. Like I play a lot of the overhook with the butterfly sweep. So I just, even though I've seen those matches a million times, I love going back and watching him just butterfly sweep the hell out of guys. Yeah. That's probably why I like Marcelo too. Like, I love seeing him just sweep the hell out of guys, take their backs, choke them out. It was such a dynamic style. But yeah, that or, honestly, I love my one student, Grace. I love watching her compete just because she's got she would use the 10th plan and stuff, especially when she was a kid. It was like the other people just had no idea what was coming. And she would putting people in twisters and, so I always enjoy watching her like slice somebody up. That is always cool too.
That is awesome. Dude, I'm a huge fan of Grace's, man. In fact, I invited Grace to be on the show a while back, knowing that she might be shy and might not want to do it, and she politely declined. But man, I'm a huge fan of hers, man. She's such
she won't do any kind of that's why she did at the finishers last one. Like they want to do who's number one again, but she's going to school. She's not really trying to travel.
Yeah,
and I'm like she doesn't like doing all the like. Have to stand in front and talk and everything. Yeah. And she's like, I just want to do the match.
It's funny because I sent the invite to her knowing that was probably how it was going to be, but I'm like, man, but just in case, because I really am a huge fan. She's incredible, man, and that must be really cool watching one of your students, having one of your students that you enjoy watching so much. That's got to be a really cool feeling as a coach.
Yeah, sometimes I just feel like she's just out there like in a different zone. I'm just always happy to, especially with any of the guys, I'm just happy to be a part of their journey and help them out as much as I can. That's
beautiful. That's awesome, man. Who do you think is your favorite superhero?
Probably got to go with Batman, just because he's cool as shit. I never really was a huge Superman fan, but I always thought the whole Batman, Gotham City, and that whole situation is pretty cool. Plus, he's like a billionaire and stuff too. I could get with that.
Yeah, exactly. I always appreciated that he's the one guy that doesn't have like an actual superpower. He just has to train. He trains hard. Yeah, he funds it with his money, but he trains hard. Yeah. If you could have a superpower, what would you choose?
Probably invisibility.
Nice. Good one. Excellent.
Yeah, I would just be like, man, I would just either that, or that would be a good one, or the ability to stop time. Because I feel like I don't have enough. There's not enough time in the day. And I remember the old DuckTales episode where they were able to do that. And like they would just go in the bank and steal stuff. Not that I would do that, but I would shut it down and just take like a 4-hour nap and then just wake up and be like, all right, good to go, or whatever. Or I'd be in the middle of a roll. I just stop time, turn around, take the guy's back, and just turn it on, be on his back. I think that might be better than invisibility. Actually,
yeah. The more you describe that, especially when you apply it to rolling, that would be great to just be able to freak people out.
Yeah, I'll choke Gordon Ryan out easy on that one. Like, how did he get on his back? I don't remember what happened.
It's like he was getting smothered. He was in that smother choke. Now he's on his back. What happened? That's amazing. Final question for the Pummel Game, Zach. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now, what's the first thing you do?
First thing I do is I'm going to my boy Mike Ortiz's house. He's one of our kickboxing instructors. And he hasn't told me this, but I just have a feeling that he's got a whole setup with like an underground lair and cannons and all types of stuff. So that's what I'm doing. I'm throwing the family in, getting a shotgun, and I'm going right to Mike's house, and then we'll go from there. He got chickens and stuff, so maybe we can, maybe we can keep it going. But awesome. I got to either that or I better start canning food, But I think I'm going to his house.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to say every academy has a guy, man. You just have to be able to identify who it is. Who's the guy with weapons? Who's the guy that's prepared? That's who you need to know.
Yeah, he's probably the most prepared. Like I said, he's got chickens and stuff. Like I'll just go over to his place and we'll, team up. It's either that or I would put the bolo out, tell everybody go to the dojo, because we got a big place. I'd be like, meet there, bunkhouse, bring everything, and then we'll just kind of fight our way out.
That's awesome. And Zach, that was the final question for the Pummel Game. Congratulations, you win. You got your double underhooks.
Yeah. Take that.
So, man, something I want to talk to you about, I'm back on the topic of guiding people through their journey and just learning jiu-jitsu. Something I've realized over the course of my journey in jiu-jitsu, I don't know if it's been the same for you or not, but I've learned so much from my teammates and training partners over the years. And, I don't want to say that I've learned more from them than from my instructors, but at the same time, there's a chance that I might have. I don't know. Between senior ranks giving me advice as I was coming up and roles with people that were my rank and below, I've absorbed a ton of knowledge just from my teammates that weren't ever my direct instructors. Has that been your experience as well in jiu-jitsu? Have you found that to be true as well?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have one guy that comes from not just even my teammates. I think just guys that come from other dojos sometimes that I used to roll competitively with all the time. There'd be a couple where one guy comes over, he's really good at leg locks, and he's got a different style than all the guys that I've already taught my own style of leg locks, and they have their own stuff too, but this guy had a whole nother situation, so I'd be working with him all the time and kind of just and I know he's testing out his best stuff and I'm testing out all my defenses to it and all that, going back and forth. So it was always and then there'd be another guy that came over who's really good at passing. His thing was passing. So I'd be learning a lot more to defend myself, more than just rolling with my own guys. Sometimes I think my own guys don't, go light on me or whatever, because I'm the coach, and sometimes I go too hard, or, and they've only been, training so long or whatever. But some of the guys that come from other schools, I feel like I've learned a lot off them just because they're the ones pushing me the most. They actually want to tap me, and you know what I mean? So it's very competitive role. That and guys I've competed against 100%. I've learned so much from that because I've learned lessons where I've lost, and I'd be like, oh, okay. I didn't learn that at the gym. I learned that by going out there and, I got lazy in this part, or, I didn't prepare right in this aspect. So they've taught me, the competitions and the people I've gone against, that give me my hardest roles. Those are the people I think I've learned a lot of lessons from.
Absolutely, man. It's funny because it's something I wish I understood a little sooner in my journey in jiu-jitsu, is that I think a lot of times when people show up to an academy, they look to the instructor as like the primary person that you're supposed to be asking questions to and absorbing knowledge from, and that's obviously true. But man, there's a lot of people. There's upper ranks in the room that have already learned and have the answers to the questions that you're asking. It's nice to be able to rely on people around you that have already been training longer than you. There's a lot of other information that can come peripherally from people that around, Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the guys already understand that because they've seen me and they know how they've seen the other guys help it, constantly helping each other out, starting up new guys. I know one of our women, Laura, she's a brown belt. She always takes the new girls under her wing. Like, hey, let me teach this as a class to come to. This is how we train, do this. And she rolls with them and, gets them good fast, so they know like, oh, I need more. If I need more women, I better take care of the women that are here. If I want more big dudes, our big guys got to get out there and like help out these new big guys, you know what I mean? Not just beat them up, like, but get them good enough to be able to roll with. And like one thing, I think one of the reasons why Grace got so good and John Blank and now Renee and Sid and all my guys, one of the reasons why they got so good is I try to lose the ego when it comes to the coaching. Like I know I might be giving them, the game plan and like we're, spending the most time together. But a lot of the guys, I have to bring in other instructors. Like I have constant, seminars. I'll have Craig Jones come through. I'll have this guy come through. I'll take them on trips with me to my seminars that I teach and bring the guys and let them train with the other guys there to see how their game's going. We all go out to California, train with Eddie, train with John Jock, then we come back. We go to a Danaher seminar. Like I'm trying to, I bring guys in. JT Torres comes in for a seminar, gets a rolling with Grace. Like I'm trying to expose them to as much jiu-jitsu as I can and as much like different ways of thought. So that way they can develop their own, style or, what they're thinking about. And then they bang it off me and we go back and forth and, it's a beautiful thing. Like I think a lot of guys that they just stay in one lane, that's as good as you're going to get. But I've always, taken my guys all over the place and tried to expose them to, tournaments, seminars, everything, as much as possible. I think that really just helps get everybody, because then they come back, check this out, what I learned. And they're showing the other guys. Because there's so many students and stuff. I can't keep track of everybody. I can't be like the main, coach all the time. Even if I wanted to, it'd be impossible, So I think a lot of the guys are doing a great job with that. Like, especially with the kids, they're always taking the next kid. Oh, now we got this girl. She's 13. We got to get her good. She's already showing signs of being good or wanting to do it more. Then we just keep giving them the opportunity and saying, hey, here's another thing you can do, So.
That's excellent, man. I love that you do that, man. It's really neat that you give your students as much exposure to knowledge as possible. Yeah, it kind of leads me to another thought I'd like to zoom in on here with you. So when it comes to development and absorbing knowledge, one concern I think a lot of students have is that they feel they need to know everything that exists in jiu-jitsu in order to be a high-level black belt someday. And to take that a step further, they may feel like that the criteria of being a true black belt is not only knowing it, but being able to execute every single technique or use every single position at a very high level in order to be like a legit black belt. And this is even if they have a really effective game that works great for them, they may still feel a little self-conscious about what they don't do perfectly. So in your opinion, is it enough to be a specialist in a few different positions in jiu-jitsu that you use to beat people often with, despite having big deficits in other areas? Or do you believe that a true black belt should have very little, if any, weak areas at all?
Yeah, it's like for me, like because I'm an instructor and I teach class all the time, and I'm like a coach of a lot of guys. I feel like I have to be kind of okay at everything, so that way I can teach these moves to people, because I do teach a lot of stuff that I don't do. So I have to like really look into it. Like I'm not really. I'll look in, okay, we're doing Z-locks. I'm started doing those now, but I found, and I got the time and I train all the time for a living. So I'll change my game up every so often. I have my main moves that I use, but I'm always trying to be like, okay, I better figure out Z-locks so I can intelligently talk about them to my students. Because I know I don't want to be the guy like, hey, what about a false sweep? And I'm like, that ain't nothing. It's like, no, we got to look into this. You know what I mean? Like, these guys doing stuff, you got to immediately figure out, what they're doing, and then I start doing it, and I start doing it to the kids, and then I start doing it to the guys, and then, or Thor, he figures it out, and he's showing all of us, and we just keep going back and forth on it. But I eventually feel if you don't have a little bit of everything, if you're not like a jack of all trades, as they say, someone's going to expose you in some way. Like you could find out like, okay, this guy has a really good leg lock position. Like he might have honey hole, let's say, real good. He's real good at the, honey hole position, the inside heel hook and getting that. But if I pass his guard, he's toast. You know what I mean? Like, so like he might have that one entry, but if I'm aware of that, maybe you got me once with it. Now it's like, okay, now I'm just never going to let that happen again. Now just really be mindful of that one entry. And then I pass and then submit or take the back all the time. You know what I mean? That's kind of like you're missing that. You might have Eddie Cummings level heel hook, but if you can't put it on anybody, then that's a tough one. Then you have to, and that's why I would get upset sometimes at the matches. I'd be like, man, for me, I mean, maybe it's not the best idea for winning all the time, but for me, I'd be like, okay, he just want to try to pass my guard. I'm going to wrestle this guy then and let's see what happens. Oh, maybe he takes me down. Maybe I take him down. I would always try to be like, oh, if he's going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to put a little bit of everything in. But some guys, they get so good at certain things and it's like, hey, it's hard to break off of that. Like if you have that one leg lock that's working or that one position, you have to really open up your mind to be understanding that you should have a little bit of everything. Then if you're like a specialist on 3 areas, like you have these 3 things real good, and then the rest of it is, you could get away with that for a while, but eventually someone will expose that in a if you're a competitor, then eventually someone will expose that. But if you're just a dude chilling at the school, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But still in your mind, it's going to be upsetting when, you have no guard recovery, but you have good leg locks and good top game, but how do you get on top if you can never get on top? Like, what if the other guy wrestled in like Kazakhstan? You're going to be playing on your butt. So that's why I'm always like, just know a little bit of even with the guys that I coach in MMA, I'm like, dude, I know you don't really think you need this, but it's important to know it. I always make this reference to, it's like guns. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Right.
Like, well, rubber guard's stupid. I'll never do that. I'm like, well, you say you will never do it until the opportunity comes up, and then you need to do it. For instance, even watching that Nicky Rod versus Felipe Pena match, Nicky Rod puts him in a body lock. All of a sudden, Felipe Pena throws up a crude, rubber guard looking position, but he throws an omoplata and Nicky Rod rolls out. And now we almost had a positional change. Yeah. So like, that's what I'm saying. I'm watching the top guys say, hey, like, I'm not going to shit on any move. Like, that's a move that could be there at the right time. May not be his best move, but hey, if I got that in the back pocket, you didn't know I had that. That's why I used to every now and then take down guys in competitions that I have no business taking down. If it was a straight wrestling match, that would never happen. But they always thought I was going to pull guard. Yeah. I come out to hit an ankle pick in one tournament, and they're like, how did he take that guy down? That guy wrestled in, D1 or whatever. And I'm like, dude, because he wasn't expecting it, because I had it in my back pocket. I want to know a little bit of everything. Like, I'm not the greatest wrestler of all time, but if the other guy didn't wrestle, I'm taking him down. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's how I want to be. Like, same with, I do this with leg locks all the time. If I'm going to roll with a guy and I'm a little bit nervous of his leg lock, I won't go anywhere near the leg locks. I might enter in to use it to pass or something like that, but I won't really get in a leg lock shootout with him because he's a leg lock guy. So I'll just try to work my passing, smash, pin, all that stuff. But if the guy doesn't know any leg locks, he's like maybe he's just a wrestler or something, then you'll see me start utilizing leg locks. Guys be like, how come you never try to leg lock me? I'm like, because you're good at leg locks. I'm like, I'm not going to do that game with you. I'm going to do the opposite. And I feel like it's definitely made me a better grappler, just being able to always like, okay, if this guy's going to wrestle me, I'll play guard. All right, the guy doesn't wrestle, I'll play the top position. I'll just kind of take what they give me. And I feel like it's fun. It's fun for me that way because it's different, and I get to change it up. So I always try to encourage everybody to like at least know a little bit of everything. Like, you might not need to know a berimbolo, but have it there just in case. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know when you're going to, I'm telling you, I tell the guys all the time, you don't know when you think you have a whole plan. And then when you go to roll with someone or a comp and then it just completely goes to shit and you got to go into like your, F bag all the way deep in the bag of tricks to try to pull something up. And if you ain't got it, it's not going to miraculously show up. So you better have it. The more prepared, the better.
That's very, very well said, man. Very well said. I also imagine a lot of that, those tactics come from your days as a striker as well, because obviously hiding your intentions and not telegraphing things and catching people by that, those are all very important aspects of all different types of martial arts. So it's cool seeing you apply that within jiu-jitsu as well, man. I think it was a very good breakdown. You talked about your leg lock defense there. I wanted to make sure that we discuss this before we go. You have a great instructional with us here called Dismantling Leg Locks, and we were talking we were talking earlier about how some schools, for some people, they might not be learning leg locks yet, but they want to at least understand how to defend them in case they start competing before they start really exploring the offensive game of leg locks. So if that's the case for anyone listening, or if you're just getting stuck in leg locks a lot, I really recommend this instructional. Zach, what do you think are some of the top important principles to not getting caught in leg locks frequently?
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That one I know has done good for me and BJJ Fanatics too. And I feel like with that one, I just kind of wanted to go over the main, positions. And there's so many guys that have hit me up, like different, school owners and just dudes who, maybe they're not exposed to the leg lock game as much as I am and as much as I have to be with no gi. So even some school owners that do gi would hit me up and say, hey man, I bought your thing. I've never met him before. Some of the guys obviously I know, but I've never met him before. And they were like super hype about me, just like, this has helped me so much. I teach these to my beginner students because they're just working on the defenses. They don't want really like people applying leg locks into gi and everything, but they don't want them to be ignorant of it, So they're like, hey, it's really helped out. So that's a good one. I really appreciate that. And so as for like what I think, if you're just starting out with defense of leg locks, like you have to be cool with being in the positions. Eventually, like some guys I'd see, they'd start with like just being tapped so fast and not giving the position a chance. So I think, obviously not being in any entanglement, which would be nice, like avoiding the whole, leg lock game, in the whole, like I wouldn't even want to be in it if I don't have to be. But if I do have to be, I just want to have, and this is what I think has helped the most, is I want to have one escape from every position. Now, sure, there's going to be counters and all this different stuff, but if you have all the main positions and you have at least one go-to escape, the most popular, best one, because there's a lot of like, well, I do this and then I take it back, I do this, this, and this. The main thing is I want to just get out and totally get out. Don't leave an option for them to re-counter you. If you like kind of halfway get out, I want you to totally escape the whole leg entanglement and then start over. It's really helped me to, like, the guy gets me in Ashi. I get taken down. I use this one I call the wedge. I escape my foot, and as opposed to staying on my butt and allowing him to re-attack me, stand back up, put him back on his back, and start passing again. Oh, he entangles my legs, completely escape. Both of my legs are complete. There's no connection. I'm out. Start over again. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, the other person is going to be beat. They're going to be tired. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to say, man, this guy just keeps getting out of my leg locks. I can't get him in anything. And maybe at that point in their mind, they start adjusting their game. And by that point, it's starting to be too late. You're already passing the guard, hopefully choking them out. So I feel like that's probably, for me, the best thing is to just pick one escape from each position, work that one a bunch, and then stick with that one. Don't try to like do a million different things at first. Just get one from Ashi, one from, honey hole or whatever you want to call it, one from, 50-50 is the other main one. So you just pick each main one and then start with that and then go from there, and then don't try to muddy it up too much. And then, like I always say, there's sure guys will be like escape the knee line and all that stuff. Those are all great, but just use the concept of the actual escape to have one from each. And then once you're out, you're out. So many guys get burned by getting caught in it again. They were almost out, and then the guy did another one, because these leg lock guys, they're stingy. They're like little I call them leg lock. They're just going to keep going. They're just spamming this one button on Sega Genesis. They're just like, like in the old wrestling game where you could just keep hitting the guy. And then also too, like I've had guys that have been really good leg lock guys that I've competed against. Like Frank Rosenthal is one of them. Where I went for a leg lock on him and he just ain't tapping. And I'm like, oh, I don't got it, because he's used to having Eddie Cummings on his legs. But then when he goes for me, he's going to be good. So I engaged in the leg lock battle with the leg lock guy. That was a stupid move. I should have just, instead of getting too deep where it turns out to be like a shootout, I should have just totally got out and keep going for it, because they're not going to stop. He's just going to keep coming at you. Like, not that Frank's a leg lock gremlin, but some of the guys I face, like, they will just, it's never ending. So you just got to keep getting out. And I would say the other thing is, you need to find a good partner that you're not afraid to roll with, that isn't going to crank your legs in any which way, especially if you're just getting into it, right? You have to learn the positions, obviously, but if you can go with a partner, and I learned this from a Danaher seminar where they both just start on their butt and they just play legs. It's only leg locks. You can stand up and escape and then start back over. But the main thing is to just keep pummeling your legs and learn the different positions and see all the different things you can get into. And then you'll start getting way more comfortable. I've had guys start with me that were like, no leg locks. They were afraid of leg locks, to now they'll leg lock me. Like, before I would touch their leg and they were tap. Now they're coming after legs like it's not even, like they never had it, like they were never afraid of it. And, it's just of constantly being in those positions, like any other move. But I think people just have this scary connotation of it because they've seen, crazy matches online where a guy's leg blew off or something like that. And, we do leg locks in the gym all the time. Old guys, some young kids, we teach them Ashi, but we teach them the escapes too. So that way they're not, if the kid puts them in that position, they just get hurt. I don't want them to not know anything, but I just limit what they can use. And they all listen for the most part. Every now and then, some of our little bit older teenagers, I'll tell them, like, you can't leg lock each other, but you can leg lock the adults. So then the adults want to roll with them. So they're over there trying to, 13-year-olds trying to heel hook me and stuff. I'm like, that's cool. They're going to get good quick. And they'll know all the positions. So they'll have no problem with someone touches their legs. It'll be like, nope, no big deal. Like, for instance, check this one out. Think about the Rotolo brothers. The first time I almost I wasn't in that division. I think I was in one below that. But when I first saw Cade and Ty live, I saw them, get tapped by Honeyhole at ADCC trials here on the East Coast. And they just weren't really sure about it. And then now look at them. Their leg locks are good. They will have leg locks some high-level guys. And they will also take everyone's back when you try to leg lock them. It's like immunity. You can't tap them. Yeah. You can't leg lock those guys, and they'll just get out, hit those baby bolos, and now they're choking you out. It's like, you should have went leg lock on me, dog. Oh, bang. You know what I mean? I should have sick. I love watching them go at it, man. Like that's probably my favorite. If I had to say, like, besides mine, get the Rotolo Brothers DVD. They got it unlocked. They're killing it.
Unbelievable stuff, man. Well, guys, like Zach said, man, if this is an area of your game that you're struggling with, or if you're just completely new to leg locks in general, I agree with Zach completely. You should really start on the defense first. Understand the positions, understand how the techniques work, and understand how to defend them. That way, you'll be able to start putting yourself in those positions to get good at attacking later, because you won't be afraid of being in there because you know how to defend them. So again, guys, that instructional is Dismantling Leg Locks. It's available right now at BJJFanatics.com, and I really do recommend you guys check that out.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm working on volume 2 as well.
Yeah. Volume 2 is coming. Cool. Awesome. So guys, keep your eyes peeled. Volume 2 is coming out. I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Zach, what are some of your major goals for 2023, man? What are some things you hope to accomplish by the time the year's over?
I want to just add more students to the dojo, 100%. I have a bunch of people competing all over the place. I'd love to get some more guys getting ready for ADCC. I got a couple MMA fighters, so I don't know if it'll happen this year, but main goal for me is I want to get someone in UFC. I think I've done pretty good with just jiu-jitsu coaching with Grace and John Blank, and then Renee Sousa just had a big win over the weekend. I'm going to keep trying to put the guys on who's number one and keep promoting the finishers tournament that we have and keep running that and trying to promote all the athletes here, the local guys on the East Coast. But I would love to. I think career goal of mine is to get someone into UFC. I think I want to be one of the guys one time hanging on the side. You know what I mean? Even if I'm not the main guy, I don't care. I just want to have the gloves on and just be hanging over the cage one. I think that is something that I want to add to my resume. And, jiu-jitsu is cool. I'm always going to stick with it, but I feel like, MMA is something really cool to get into. And I never would have thought that I'd be even in this position, let alone even talking to you about coaching a guy in UFC. And we got a couple guys too that are, definitely on the horizon. We got 4 of our fighters fighting in the local card coming up. So I'm just going to keep sticking with that. And I'd love to do that for sure. I think that'd be awesome. And just keep taking my family on little vacations and enjoying as much time as possible.
That's awesome. I love it, man. Well, dude, Zach, obviously you're a tremendous coach, man. I have no doubt that you'll get people into the UFC very soon. Shout out to your guy Renee, man. Amazing performance. The only submission at the who's number one.
I know, that was crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah. So, man, I commend you for all your great work, man. I definitely appreciate your time with us here today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Really appreciate you having me. And I really thank BJJ Fanatics and everything they do for the community. It's huge, and it keeps everybody on their game. If you're not out there studying, I'm buying videos all the time. Like I'm constantly getting stuff or hitting up Mike, being like, "Yo, let me get that new Kieran DVD. I got to coach against him coming up. I got to know what's up." So he's like, "All right, you can have it." So just thank you guys for everything that you guys do, and just keep doing these, man. I love hearing the podcast, and especially with all the guys that have the Fanatics DVDs, you get to hear them talk about the stuff that they're teaching, which is really dope.
Well, man, it means a lot that you tune in, Zach. That really does. I really do appreciate that, man.
Hells yeah, man.
Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Zach, once again, I really do appreciate your time, man. I've had a blast talking with you today. I really appreciate all your insight as an instructor. I think this is always valuable conversations to have for people listening, because a lot of people that train jiu-jitsu do want to someday be an instructor, do want to have their own school, and getting to hear the thoughts of successful instructors like this is very helpful for them. So thank you again for your time. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Zach, the best place to do so is Instagram. His Instagram is Big Uncle Zach Maslany, so you guys can follow him there. He's got a link tree in his bio where he has all of his YouTube links and everything else, so make sure you guys follow him on Instagram. And then also, guys, if you're ever traveling through Pennsylvania and you're anywhere near Bethlehem, make sure you drop into his academy. Super cool group of people, very welcoming environment. Drop in, get some good training. If you can't make it to Pennsylvania, luckily you can learn from Zach anywhere in the world here at BJJFanatics.com. He's got several instructionals with us. The one we talked about in depth today was dismantling leg locks, which volume 2 is going to be coming out very soon. So pay attention for that. But if you're having trouble with leg locks or getting stuck in them anyways, check out dismantling leg locks right now at BJJFanatics.com. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics Podcast.